Hello and welcome to Brian Reeby Drives Electric. A few weeks ago, I got a chance to drive the Mustang Mach-E, but only got first impressions because I only had it for a few hours. I enjoyed myself, but I wanted to get in touch with a longtime owner and see what that long-term owner experience is. Joe Mack agreed to come and do this interview, and I really appreciate it. He picked up his car in late June of this year, but already has 17,000 miles on it. So he's had a lot of time behind the wheel, and I'm looking forward to hearing his experience.
Hey, how are you?
Great. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on your Mach-E purchase.
Yeah.
That's exciting. You got that in June?
June, I think mid-June, or maybe it was June 20th. I don't remember exactly the date, but mid-June. I got lucky. It actually came in earlier. They were expecting it towards mid-July, and it just so happened to end up coming a little earlier. So there's a whole story behind that and on the reservation process, but it worked out really well.
Why don't we start there then? How was the reservation process?
Last fall, I said, you know what? I drive a lot, obviously, with the amount of mileage I drive. And I had wanted a Tesla really bad, and I was going to buy and purchase a Tesla, but I went down last fall and drove one. I was driving an Expedition at the time, right? Okay. 2018 Expedition, and it's a big vehicle and it's really cushy. And once I drove the Tesla, it wasn't as cushy and big as I thought. It had a whole different ride experience. Mm-hmm. So I thought, yeah, I might not be quite ready to move into that space yet until the ride comfort gets a little bit better. And I didn't really even know the Mach-E was coming out yet. And then fast forward now into the springtime of 2021. In February, I started learning more about the Mach-E. I had test driven the Teslas, and it wasn't the ride quality wasn't what I was looking for based on how much I drive. At least the Model 3 and the Model Y performance editions. Mm-hmm. Right? I didn't test drive an S. I just was not ready to spend that kind of money. Yep. Anyway, fast forward to April, I went and test drove a Mach-E over at Freeway Ford in Eden Prairie. Okay. If you know where that's at. Yep. I got in, I drove it, and it was a whole different ride experience, completely different ride experience. And I thought, this is it. This has gotten me from off the couch from driving my big, huge SUV to going into electric.
Yeah, fantastic.
So, and it mainly had to do with the ride comfort. Mm-hmm. And it was quiet. I love that it's quiet. I just love that quietness for how much I drive around and what I do for a living. I just don't want to hear the noise. I just want nice and quiet and peacefulness. And I knew Tesla's offered that as well, but not this. Anyway, not to compare cars in any way. But anyway, long story short, I went ahead and put in my reservation right there on the spot. I custom ordered it, did the paint I wanted, did exactly everything I wanted. I wanted the extended range, all-wheel drive, and the color that I wanted. So, and I was going to trade in my Subaru, my wife's Subaru. We were trading in our Subaru. I was keeping my pickup truck. And unfortunately, the dealer didn't give me what I wanted for the Subaru. They kind of lowballed me. I called up the competitor and I said, look, I want to, buy a Mach-E. They said, by golly, we got one coming in. Somebody dropped the order. I said, okay. What kind was it? What was the trim level? It was a premium all-wheel drive, extended range, everything I wanted, and the color and the interior color.
Wow.
So they said, if you want it, we'll put your name on it. And I said, all right. I put my name on it. I said, what are you giving me for my trade? And luckily I was able to, the Subaru wasn't that old, and ended up getting more than what I paid for it.
Oh, wow.
The Subaru. So I said, well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I ended up going back to the other dealer, and I think I had to put $1,000 down at the original dealer that I spec'd it out with. And I went back to the other dealer, canceled. They gave me the money right back. It was probably a week later, and they just gave me the money right back. And then I ended up going to the other dealer and worked out that, and they didn't do any markups or anything. It was invoice.
Oh, nice.
and walked away. And sure enough, I was a little nervous, but I did have a third car. I do have three cars, and I was able to. So it dropped me down to two, and my oldest daughter was driving I had to drive my daughter's car. My daughter got inconvenienced for those 2 months while we waited, but it all worked out really well. And I pulled in and ended up coming in earlier, came in mid-June where I was expecting it to get it in July.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up selling the Subaru right on the spot. I just took the risk that the Mustang was going to come in when they said it was going to come in and it wasn't going to get delayed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little risky there, but it worked out quite well. And the color, everything that I wanted was coming in.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And to get more for your Subaru too. I understand why you'd want to jump on that deal when you got it.
Yeah, it was I don't usually make out well on vehicles at all, but
I don't think many people do. Yeah.
And sure enough, I went back to the dealership in October and my Subaru is still sitting on the lot. The dealer even walked up and he said, sometimes we make out, sometimes we don't.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So overall, I mean, you had to do a little wheeling and dealing, but it was a pretty good experience then between the two dealers.
Yeah, it was I don't know if Maury's Minnetonka Ford was who I ended up buying it through.
Okay.
Super easy to work with. And I knew a lot about the product. Actually, I knew more about it than the dealer now. Mm-hmm. He didn't. I mean, he knew, but he didn't know to the depths that I knew about it, and I knew about a lot of the Ford financing programs already. So there wasn't any behind this, nothing screwy. It was like, hey, I know what the rates are that they're offering, and it's whatever. And they just went right through it. No problem. So
well, that's fantastic to hear. Cause I think at least a lot of the people in the Tesla world are like, it seems like a good car, but what's it going to be like dealing with the dealerships again? Because I think a lot of people have been burned in the past by dealerships. And so it's always a little tough, but
I think if you walk into the dealer with a little bit of knowledge that you have your homework kind of done and you kind of in a roundabout way, let them know, what you're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. At least with Maury's, they didn't try to jerk me around at all. If anything, I felt as if I wasn't expecting as good of a opportunity as they ended up giving me. So
that's great.
Yeah, at least that's how I felt. But who knows? They may be on the other end. They're laughing to the bank.
Well, as long as you feel like you got a good deal and there wasn't a big markup after, on top of it, I think you did pretty well. So you kind of described a little bit about how you chose the Mach-E. What made you go for that first Tesla test drive or start getting into the idea of the next vehicle being an EV?
Well, I had a family member that had an EV, right? And they took the plunge on doing it. And I thought, well, let me back up. Ever since Teslas came out and the electric car has come out, I've always been very fascinated with it. I've always followed the commodities and stuff like that. I always kind of followed the price on oil and different things like that. And I followed a lot of forums and I just thought, you know what? This electric thing is going somewhere. But I always had the big vehicle, and not that I wanted it. I have a big family.
Right. Yeah.
I have 5 kids. So there's 7 of us. We needed a big vehicle. But then 2 of our oldest ones had actually are now over 18. So it kind of gave me a window of opportunity to say, look, I don't need this big SUV anymore. I only need a 5-seater. So that was kind of, within the most recently, but I've been kind of following the old electric market for quite a while, but I just I wasn't ready to take that leap because I was worried about the technology, just wasn't feeling it right. People talk a lot about the charging infrastructure, but I have found that's irrelevant to me.
Oh, great.
I just charge from home. I know a lot of people, for the amount of driving I do, I don't actually ever have to charge. The 300 miles range in the summer months when I'm doing probably more of my driving is plenty of range. By the time I get home, I just plug in and I'm good, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, that's mostly how I operate too. I lately the superchargers I've gone to have been because I want to do a supercharger review, or like I just want to check a new one out or something.
Yeah, right.
About the amount of driving you do, you said since late June, mid to late June, you've put 17,000 miles on the Mach-E already.
Yes.
And we're about that time in November now, so just a handful of months.
Right. I'm just gonna double check my mileage right now while we're sitting here because I have the Ford app, of course. 17,477 to be exact.
Wow. And that's in 5 months?
5 months, yeah. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So,
and that's mostly around here. You haven't done any like big road trips or anything?
The longest road trip I've made was to Duluth. No, I'll back up. Sorry, I didn't go to Duluth. I think the furthest I was going to take a trip to Duluth, but that plan fell apart. Went to, it's pretty much all around here. A lot of, I sell real estate, so I show homes. Oh. So that's why I'm racking up so many miles. So it's just all over the place. And generally speaking, I don't need to, it's just all, I don't know, it's fairly local, I guess I would say. And with the housing market the way it is, you're in multiple offers every time. So it's just you're driving everywhere, which is fine, which is part of the reason why I bought it, because I know how much driving I do. And I should mention, by the way, that my first hybrid car was a Ford C-Max.
Okay.
I still have that car. And that was another main reason why I decided to go with a Ford product, because I had experience with the Ford that has over 250,000 miles on it. I still have that car. My oldest daughter now drives it. It runs. I have not done anything with it. It does the regenerative braking and then things like that. And the only thing I've put in it was tires for the most part.
Wow. And that, I'm not real familiar with that. That's not a plug-in hybrid. It's just a hybrid, right?
It's just a hybrid. They do have,
similar to like the Prius model or
something. Right. So it does have that another level, it does have that C-Max Energy, it's called, where you can plug that in. But I don't have that option. I just have a hybrid like a Prius.
Okay.
One of the big deals that sealed the deal for me with the Ford was that since I had that product previously, the C-Max, I felt comfortable with their batteries. I don't know what kind of batteries they have in it, but I still can run on electricity, no problem at that kind of mileage, right? Mm-hmm. And felt very comfortable with it. And the product, it's more of a European car. They seem to build them more in Europe. It's well built. Felt really good about it. So
hybrids are, for me too, that was a great way to get comfortable with, hey, there's a battery in this thing, right. And we bought ours in 2008. Mm-hmm. And that was the big question everyone had back then, is like, well, what do you do when the battery dies? What do you do when the battery dies? And it's like, that's the only thing we haven't had to maintain on that thing, because we're over 200,000 miles on that too. And, we loved it, but, when we went to an EV, it's like, I'm not worried at all about the battery.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. That was kind of my thought too. It's like, I'm not worried about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
People get all hyped up and nervous about it. But I'm starting to realize it won't be long before gas engines are obsolete, and they will be very difficult to get rid of your gas guzzler.
Yeah.
It just is going to be a tidal wave. You have your neighbor drive your Tesla. I have my neighbor drive my Mach-E. Then they say, well, why aren't I doing this?
Yeah.
It's so smooth. It's so, just bam. Why, especially when you start to get a certain age where you don't care about the certain thing, or you want a certain ride quality. And I already have, I bet I've test driven with friends, 3 or 4 people, just myself alone. And they already got their orders in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think a lot of people are, that are hesitant, don't realize, a lot of families do have 2 vehicles. Right. And one vehicle is the family hauler. Mm-hmm. And one vehicle is the around town backup, commuter car. Right. And chances are, for most people, one of those could easily be electric, if not both.
Right. Right.
People think they drive a lot. Obviously, you drive a lot, but people in general think they drive far more than they really do.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. People think that now that I've been paying much more attention to my range, because I was worried about range anxiety in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I have no concerns about range anxiety at all. Nothing. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, I was nervous about it. And I thought, 300 miles is a long way.
Yeah.
250 miles is a long way. I don't know any typical person in the general population, for the most part, is driving a solid 300 miles or 250 miles in one day.
Yeah. If your job is always on the road, kind of like right. Yours is a lot, but even you're not doing, 300 a day.
Right. Right.
You haven't had any issues with the range or anything. Have you gone to any of the public chargers just to test them out, just to play around with it at all?
I have.
How's that been?
It's been okay. I haven't ran into anything where it didn't. Oh wait, I there was one instant where it didn't work. But I didn't really, it was more or less just to try it out. Like, how do I use this thing? Does my app work? So if something happens, I want to figure out the app to make sure the charge point works properly and different things like that. And I have wallets set up and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't, I stopped down in Northfield the other day. There's I don't know if you know where Northfield's at, but they have a little charging station there. And I just pulled in just to pull in to do it, make sure my systems are working properly. As it gets colder, range does suffer. So I just want to make sure, all right, is all my systems working here properly if I do need to pull in and charge somewhere. But I've only had to charge on a level 3. I've only used a level 3 charger once, and that was Elk River.
Okay.
And level 3 at a grocery store up there. I don't remember which one it was.
Have you been to the Electrify America station yet? I guess that would be the other fast charger.
Yeah. I know Ford has kind of their main people for Electrify America, but I discovered after on all the reviews and posts and stuff like that, they say you might not want to trust Electrify America. Essentially, right? They say use Google posts on Google Maps. There's an option to put on all the charging stations. So I'm not one way or the other. Wherever's got juice, I'll go to. Right. So as long as I'm considering, I think I can get an adapter for a Tesla charging station, I believe. For
the level 2 stuff, that would be at like hotels and destinations.
Mm-hmm.
You can get an adapter for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is not an adapter yet that works with the superchargers.
Oh, okay.
They're starting a test program in Europe.
Okay.
That just opened up about a month ago with a handful of stations there. But the plan is to roll that out wider. I think they're kind of testing, get the kinks out. North America has a different plug. Like everybody over there uses CCS.
Right.
And for here, you'd need the adapter. And I have a feeling they plan to open it up this year, but with the chip shortage and getting new equipment, because everybody's going to have to buy that adapter, which means they have to produce it first, get it over here. So I'm guessing that won't be till mid next year or maybe late next year before those adapters and that starts opening up in North America. But that's just my best guess, just based on like how manufacturing and supply chains are going throughout the world. So, but that'll be great when more vehicles, you can use the supercharger network too, because that so far has been super reliable for me anyway.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that it's not any issue with Tesla charging. Now, had I been a long distance driver where I was taking those 300 miles and going cross country with it, I don't know if I would gone with the Mach-E. Just because I know the Teslas are much better infrastructure. But I knew I averaged, when I did my math, I knew I averaged approximately 100 to 125 miles a day in driving. So I figured, okay, I just charge from home.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're kind of in a weird spot where the Electrify America network is getting better. I had a few issues charging when I had the Mach-E, but some of that was idiot user error.
Okay, sure.
Eventually, I did get it to charge, and it was fine and fast. But there's only one of those in the state. There are other fast chargers, but
isn't it in like Woodbury?
Yeah, it's in Woodbury.
Yeah,
and so not real convenient for you.
No.
But going east through Wisconsin and toward the East Coast, or south and then west, there's plenty of Electrify America. But if you want to go further west or north in Minnesota or across the Dakotas, Wyoming, you can't. I mean, you can on slower chargers, on like that they call fast chargers, but still you're going to be there a couple hours instead of 40 minutes or something.
Right.
Right. So yeah, that's the only drawback if you were to road trip that direction. It sounds like you've got a great setup and being able to use that. And I got to imagine you're saving a ton on gas.
Oh, I've done the math. So I figure with the amount when I was driving my pickup, okay, the same amount of mileage that I was running, let's say just average. I mean, I look back 2 years for the same month of electricity. Let's say it was in July. I went back 2 years. And in July was probably my height of mileage that I drove in that first month I was driving, because I'm taking it everywhere and I'm driving it like I stole it. I mean, I'm driving everywhere. I'm showing everybody. I'm taking it as, taking the family out, because I cram all 3 kids in that back seat. We don't even touch the truck if we don't have to, But I figure I'm saving about $430 to, on a good month, I would say, $450 a month in fuel.
Wow.
At minimum, because my electric bill only went up I shouldn't say only, but I look at it as a fuel cost. That fuel that it took me to drive those same amount of miles was $130 in electricity.
Wow.
Okay. Convert that into gasoline. I mean, it pays for itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if the car's more expensive, you're saving so much, that payment's coming down. And
yeah, it's incredible. It is just, that's when people start putting pen to paper, the way I look at it, if you do a decent amount of driving, it is really a no-brainer. It just doesn't make sense why anybody wouldn't do it. And the price on that Mach-E, the prices on these SUVs in that same category are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, not much more. Mach-E isn't a whole lot more. And same with the Y and the 3. They're not that much more than your typical gas consuming car.
Yeah. The Y is kind of shot up over the year as the prices increased a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you end up, if you can charge at home, and if you've got for your electricity, do you have like a time of use meter, or are you just plugging it in, or what's your plug-in situation?
My plug-in situation is so Ford, as you probably found the review, they provide you a charger, right? And it's a 240 volt, I believe 240. I don't know what the ampage is. I think it's like 50 amp, I want to say. That sounds right.
Yeah, 40 or 50. Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily, my brother-in-law is an electrician. So nice. So he was able to come over, and I roughed everything in. I went out and bought the wiring, and then I roughed it in, and then he came over and put it in the panel. And I just have it in my garage, and I just plug it in, and we're good. But my kilowatt for Shakopee Public Utility is 9 cents a kilowatt, 0.09 cents a kilowatt. There's no off-peak for Shakopee.
Okay.
It's just standard rate. So it doesn't really matter to what time I charge. I just plug in, and I'm paying the same across the board.
9's pretty good. 7 is what we have for our off peak.
Okay.
And then we have like a 11 cents during something like that, or 11 or 12 through the rest of the day. And then like at peak time, it's like 14.5 cents or something like that. So we just, charge it overnight and use the cheap stuff.
Right.
But yeah, 9 cents all the time is not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad. I thought, I was kind of follow the forums and people talk about what their pricing is. 9 cents ain't too bad.
Yeah.
They are talking about, in my community here, of adding another meter for car charging.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will that benefit us or not benefit us? We'll see. I hope it leans towards benefiting us, where they add that separate meter and charge it at a lower rate. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how as the people start shifting to electric cars, and if they're going to start increasing the price of electricity. But my view is these electric companies have one big competitor, or two big competitors: wind and solar.
Yeah.
Hopefully consumers can keep pushing the price down, because I'll just say, hey, if you want to charge me that much money, I'm going to go put solar up.
Yep.
And go buy my own bank of batteries, charge those up, and suck off of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, anyway, and hopefully they don't get carried away with saying we're going to charge. It's not. Hopefully, it's not like gas prices where the stock market essentially controls that for the most part.
Yeah.
Where now we can compete and we can say, look, well, I'm going to throw up solar panels. I got a bid on solar panels the other day, and a little too much for me, but right now I don't want to drop on this particular home. I don't want to, this isn't my forever home. So I'm not going to drop all kinds of.
With our electric company, they had us install a separate meter.
Oh, they did.
And so that's why I have like 3 different rates depending on what time of day I charge. Okay. And so we have that option. And then we have another option where you can have it so it just kills the plug other than overnight.
Okay.
And then you get slightly cheaper, maybe it's 6 cents a kilowatt hour.
Sure.
But then, if it's mid-morning and you need to plug in because you forgot overnight, your plug is dead and you got to go to a supercharger or something. So I'm like, I'll pay a little more for the convenience of knowing I can plug it in any time of the day or night.
Sure.
For my test drive, I really enjoy driving it. Like you said, the ride comfort's really nice. I didn't have a ton of seat time, but what I did, it was comfortable. A couple things that I noticed. When you said you really liked how quiet it is,
right?
Do you use the fake engine noise?
No.
Okay. Have you tried it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I show it off to people.
Okay.
When I'm giving them test drives, I'm like, well, if you really want to hear the engine, because they'll say, I want to hear the engine roar.
Yeah.
I say, okay, let's go unbridled. And I turn on propulsion sound, and then they can hear it. And they're like, oh, wow. And they get a kick out of it, But once they're out, I immediately turn it off. So,
yeah, it's one of the few times when I've been alone that I've laughed out loud, because I got on the highway and I put it down. I was like, it's not quite right as far as an engine sound, and but it's fun, but I definitely wouldn't want it all the time. It's just kind of like, oh, this is fun. It's a kick.
Yeah.
Let's shut that off now.
Yeah. Right.
I guess I'm glad it's there for people who feel like they need that, and do enjoy it, because it is, like I said, it's fun if you like that.
Right.
But I really wanted to hear like how loud is the car, how, because I only had a little bit of time with it. So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to put that away and drive it. Right. How have you found the screen as far as interacting with it and the app and stuff? When I did my test, I didn't have my phone connected or anything. So you've got your map up at the top and then those kind of tiles across the midsection.
Right.
And to me, it felt like wasted space.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also thinking, well, maybe if I had my phone connected here or another device, or, are those a pretty useful part of the UI, or what's the screen experience like for you?
Without my phone connected, I render it useless. I don't really use it at all. Right. I don't listen to a whole lot of radio or a whole lot of music in the car. I truly like just to be quiet in the car for the most part. So I might not be the best example on that aspect of it, but another major reason why I decided to go with Tesla, or the Ford product, was because of Apple CarPlay.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have my Apple CarPlay because of maps, right?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
For all the different addresses I go to, and for me to relearn a technology in a short amount of time, because in real estate, everything's on demand. I got to be on demand like that. I can't wait around. It has to be immediate. Everybody wants immediate service. So it's bam, bam, bam. And I needed to have Apple Maps not Apple Maps, but Apple CarPlay to work properly. So essentially, once I did the wireless CarPlay and my Apple CarPlay syncs up beautifully, and my Google Maps syncs up perfectly, I very rarely, I'll be quite honest, I'm not really ever into the other interface at all. If anything, I find it annoying that Ford has a self-learning location for you. Like basically it helps self-learn. Oh, you go to all these different locations, right? So it tries to chime in because I'm never really going to the same location ever at the same time. So it will ding, ding, ding me, say, hey, you got to go to this place. Well, I don't go there. So
you work here. No, I worked there one day.
Right. So it self-learns, or let's say I had to go to that location at least 2 or 3 times in one time, but now I'm not there ever again. Mm-hmm. When I'm out in Burnsville, it's saying, hey, you got to go to, Plymouth when I'm not going to go to Plymouth for quite some time. And it tries to go to that, or wants me to remind me. There is an option that you can remove that from the setting. And I had removed it at one point in time. But recently, last month, or a couple of weeks ago, I thought, well, let me toggle that back on and just see. Because I never gave it the full throated, but I'm going to turn it off now again because it's not that great. So I just stick in Apple CarPlay, to be quite honest. So I don't really use the interface a whole lot for the system.
And I've actually never used Apple CarPlay, so this is probably a very stupid question, but does it pretty much just take over your whole screen then? When you log in Apple CarPlay, it just becomes the interface for your car?
Exactly. It almost overlays the whole entire other system. I have my Apple Music where I just say, hey, Siri, play whatever. It pretty much just overlays it, and then it has Apple Maps that pulls up, I use Google Maps. It just overlays the whole system, has all my contacts. So that's the limit that I really use it for. Once in a while, I'll play the radio and listen to some that particular stuff. I know that's a very important part of the car. And I got to imagine most folks now, if they have the Apple CarPlay and are using it, they're going to find that they're just going to plug in their Apple CarPlay and that's all the whole system they're going to use. And they won't even use Ford's map system, which isn't the fastest.
Okay. Well, that's good to know that there is a good option, because that was not even an issue. I just felt like this seems pretty outdated, but if most people use CarPlay,
right,
they can probably get away with it being a little outdated, because if the people on the high end of tech are using the Apple CarPlay feature, then the other people don't care that it's not as high tech. I guess it would probably be the case. Right. But that's good to know that you can set up the interface how you want it with CarPlay. And
I feel once my Apple CarPlay sinks in, it pretty much takes over nearly the whole screen. And I don't need to. There has been a bug or issue with Apple CarPlay and Sync 4 connecting to each other to ensure, like there's a delay for the system to boot up. But I found a trick. I just say her name, and then it pulls this whole system back up. And I should put that out on the forum, because people have had a little bit of issues with Apple CarPlay. And I should throw that out and just say, hey, when you say her name, it will come back to life, and it's connected, but it's like just thinking. It's not pulling up properly. So
yeah, that's a great tip to share.
it will basically come back to the interface for you. It's like hidden in the background somehow. I don't know why it does it, but once you say her name, then she'll come back to life. And then I immediately will hit the map button, and then it stays right there.
Yeah, that's a great tip. How do you feel about the start stop button? Because that was a little weird for me to get used to. But
Yeah,
again, I was only in it for a little bit.
Coming from a Tesla, I suppose it was a little weird because, they don't have one, but I was coming from a gas car where I had the key, natural key, or a start stop button because I had a Ford Expedition earlier, and it was set up almost identical as the Expedition. So it felt very natural for me, and there wasn't much of a learning curve going into the Mustang because it felt, and I would much rather, by the way, it'd be called Mach E instead of Mustang. Personally. So
yeah, a lot of people feel that way. Even my wife was like, I like it. I just wish it wasn't called that. But
right. I wish it would just be called Mach E.
Yeah.
And just take the pony off of it personally. I mean, everybody has their own preference on it, but I'm more of my first car was a Mustang, right? An 89 Mustang. That was my first car, but I didn't care. It wasn't nothing to me like, oh, it's a Mustang. It was, It's an electric car and it's comfortable to drive and I'm buying it,
Yeah. I think making it a Mustang was a brilliant marketing move because it got everybody talking about, and, no press is bad press.
Right.
They kind of created a controversy when they wouldn't have had to.
Right.
But maybe it got people talking about their new EV instead of it just, kind of flying under the radar.
Right. Right. The deep-throated, Mustang enthusiasts, they hate it, but a guy like me, I could care less that it says Mustang on it. I really don't. I mean, that's one thing I wanted to make sure to mention. I didn't buy it because it was a Mustang. I bought it because it was a Mach E and had an E in it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the key part. And it is fun to drive. It's definitely got different driving characteristics.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, the stop start button, get back to that point.
Yeah.
For me, so when I got into the car, I was coming from an ICE car, right? And it felt when I got in the car, there wasn't a learning curve to it. It had my speedometer right in front of me, right? Yes, I had this big fancy screen, but it was just like my Expedition. I had a big fancy screen there as well. And I had all my Apple CarPlay and it had the start stop button and the same shifter gear where I just put it in drive and I went.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So to me, even though I know technically I'm just hitting the button and it doesn't really matter, but
that is one thing I think they did great on the Mach-E, and one that it seems like they're carrying over into the Lightning too, is making a very comfortable transition for Ford buyers. The stuff that Ford owners expect is there.
Right.
For me, the start stop button, like I said, I had a little trouble with Electrify America, and I not being used to having the charge port there. I had to kind of pull in, pull out, pull in, keep moving it closer and closer to the cord and then switching. So in that instance, which again, isn't going to happen to everybody, and especially not once you're used to it, but the experience of getting in, press the button, wait for the animation.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can back up, go forward, get out, still not close enough, get in, press the button, wait for the animation.
Yeah.
I realized I was in a weird situation there, but I was like, this is so annoying. But
yeah, to that point, like you mentioned, the animation, I actually reached out in a forum, like, is there a way I can just start and go? Right. Well, it turns out that you can just hit the button and go.
Okay.
So you don't actually need to wait around for it. You just hit the button, put in a reverse, and then you're immediately overrides that, and it immediately goes into the reverse camera button.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, if you don't have to
Yeah.
wait for that,
Right.
because
Right.
I was like, it's really cool, it's well done, but like,
Yeah. You
I
don't
got
have
to
time
move
to
this
wait.
thing.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
stuff to do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. But I have discovered that because there's no way, because a lot of times I'm in a hurry mode to get out the door and go, and I just turn it to reverse and I'm out of there where
Okay,
there's no
great.
waiting. So if anything, I get a little mixed up if I have the car on or off. Like, I don't know how to explain it, where it looks like it's on,
Hmm.
but it's not on. And I'm trying to put it in gear, but it won't let me go in gear because it's not on. So then I have to, oh yeah, push the brake, start the button. All right, now I can go.
When I was charging it at home, just on my, on my NEMA 1450
Mm-hmm.
with the charger they have provided, I was getting in and out of it because I was filming different parts. I'm like, is it on now? Is it not
Right,
on? Where's my charge rate? And
right.
I think it was on the binnacle screen behind the steering wheel
Yes.
where it
Yeah.
shows how high the charge rate is.
Yes.
But there was like an error message or a auxiliary power on or something like that
Yes.
over it. So I couldn't see
Yes.
where the
Yes.
charge rate was behind that. And I
Mhm.
a longer term owner might know how to clear that or something.
Right.
But I was just like, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
didn't have the app either. So I didn't have a way to check,
Sure.
you
I
know.
will say this based on Chevy's product with the Bolt, I know their interface has become is much further along than Ford, and I'm sure Tesla's light years beyond. That is one thing that I feel as if I am Ford is definitely lacking on is the uh, information on your charge rate, how much energy you've put in, and just the detailed report where you can really dial in the details like I've seen on Tesla. It's kind of like on, it's just you're at 20%, you're at 30% or whatever. You don't see the actual increments and exactly the rates and efficiencies of it. And I wish Ford would get on board with that and a little more detailed data if you want to take time to study it. I don't study it, so I'm probably lucky that I don't have to study it. But but I don't have the option to study it either. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
Does any of that stuff show up on your app, or does it show like your charging or charge rate or anything on the app?
It does have, I can see what they have charge logs. Okay. So yesterday when I plugged in, all it gives me is I added 26% to the battery. I added 68 miles and I charged for 4 hours and 52 minutes, but it doesn't have the kilowatts that I consumed. And that's what I want. I want to know how much kilowatts I put in. I don't care really how long it took me. I want to know what it costed me. Right. So it breaks it down in percentages and miles added. It doesn't break it down into kilowatts added. And that's at the end of the day, that's what you want to know. So I am very disappointed with Ford in that aspect of it. So I had to charge 80% the other day. It took 12 hours and 27 minutes. I plugged in at 20% and it took 12 hours and 30 minutes and added 182 miles. Okay. So, but still don't know how many kilowatts I put in. So in order to get that information, I would have to either I think get a different charging block and not use Ford's one that they provide for the car. But it would be nice if the car was smart enough to put it on the app.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about any like software updates or anything? Has there been any communication about, we're going to improve this or this over time I assume they will.
Yeah.
But has there been any communication on that?
So there was a recent update that I did not have my car. I guess they do it in blocks, so many at a time. And if you miss that window of opportunity in your block, from what it sounds like from the forums that I read, they will do it a different time, a different date in the future. Who knows when in the future? Okay. I did not have my car overnight. I didn't have my Wi-Fi connected to, apparently you're easier to get the updates if you're connected to your Wi-Fi in your house. And I didn't have that connected yet.
Okay.
And frankly, when I got the email that says, oh, the download failed, I got a notification from Ford that the download failed. And then I did some more research, and it sounds like I missed that window of opportunity. So I have since hooked my Wi-Fi up to the car to make sure I'm always connected. There is updates coming. I am bringing the car in for service on tomorrow or today, actually. My charge pad for the wireless charging isn't working for some reason. So I'm bringing it in, and I will ask that they update the car, see if the dealer can force update it.
Yeah, I would think they would be able to.
Yeah. So that's the only issue I've had so far with the car is the charging pad doesn't work.
I mean, it's not great to have an issue, but it's a pretty minor, should be easy fix. So that's pretty good.
One other tip for people that I've discovered, I think the stuff that there may be an issue with on the car, that's more of a learning curve on how to use the car. For example, I've discovered when I drop the kids off at school and we're all sitting in a line. I don't know if you do that. I know we're all kind of sitting in a line. We have all the kids jump out and they get it. Well, no. But then when I go back into the car, I jump in and I put it into drive right away. It will go forward, lurch forward a little bit, and then it stops immediately. Like it brakes, locks up. Well, what I discovered is that the system, it wants to make sure that your door is fully, because I'm literally putting it in a drive while the door is still coming to a close, basically. And it's thinking that it didn't, more than likely the plunger didn't fully go inside the car. And then I put it in a drive and it's just not ready to go in the drive yet. So I think there's something else going on. So it locks up the car. It simply puts on the emergency brake. But I discovered when I get in, I make sure I shut the door completely, hesitate maybe 1 second, then put it in a drive, and then I'm good to go. And same thing going through the car wash. Since the car doesn't technically have a neutral, I've had a family member take it through a car wash, for whatever reason, and he couldn't get it to go in a neutral. You have to make sure you are at a complete stop, locked, completely stopped, and the hand is up that says ready. Put it in a neutral, and then she'll roll. Otherwise, it will lock up on you and won't let you roll through the car wash.
That's good stuff to know.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids getting in and out, how have the back doors been for little fingers and everything? Because it seemed like a pretty good system to me as far as it pops out. It's got that plunger that holds it from closing on you. Mm-hmm. And then when I took it up to my sister's house, her kid grabbed the door a little bit.
Yes.
And then pushed it and it was like, oh, my fingers. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, you can't smash your fingers. And they're like, oh, if you just tug it a little bit, it releases that.
Yes.
And then it seems like a great system, but in practice, have you guys had any issues with that?
I have had it once. Yes. I thought it was a foolproof system. I was like, look at this. Push on that, everybody.
Yeah.
Nothing, you can't.
You can put your fingers in there and push on it. I did that as a demonstration. And then they're like, oh, no, that it got me.
Yeah. So my second oldest daughter hit the button. And this is they learned the hard way that you can trick the system. She pulled it open just a little bit and we're like, all right, we're not going there. It was just like a weird, awkward moment where we were going to go in, but not go in. We're going to go get ice cream or something. And there was a big, long line where we kind of turned around. We're like, we're not doing it, or I don't know, however it went. My son had put his fingers in to pull open the door, while my other daughter had opened it. My youngest son went to go pull it open, and then she shut it. Because we were kind of in this weird, awkward, not going in anymore. And she thought, I don't know, however the sequence went. Anyway, sure enough, Henry got his fingers pinched. But it is not foolproof. So But overall, as a whole, I've been very pleased with it. I've only had one instance out of all the times the kids have gotten in and out of the car where it didn't operate as intended. And 99.9% of the time, you're only getting in and out of the car. You're not going to have these weird sequences where you open it a little bit and then close it,
Sure. And that could, it's good to remind people too that kind of thing happens all the time in regular vehicles that don't have a stopper.
Right. I think there's probably more times with my kids getting their fingers pinched in a regular door than there would on that Mustang.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the batteries, and everybody says, well, who knows about the battery? Well, who knows about the engine?
Yeah.
Your engine can go out,
Yeah.
Don't put oil in the engine, and now you got to put a new engine in,
Yeah. I heard this Tesla broke down. How many cars did you pass broken down on the side of the road on your way to work today?
Exactly.
It just happens to vehicles sometimes. And,
Yeah.
EVs aren't immune, but they got a whole lot fewer moving parts and pieces. And
yeah, I was with my oldest brother last night, and he's not a big EV fan. He's not ready for it. And he will be, I'm sure, at one point in time, but not quite ready. Anyway, he goes, yeah, I passed a Tesla and was sitting on the side of the road, and by golly, something makes me wonder about those cars. As he probably passed 3 other cars on the way to work that were just broken down, whether water pump or brake or who knows what's good.
Yeah. In my younger years, my wife and I were just talking about this last night. We went from beater to beater to beater.
Yeah.
And
right.
It's time to get rid of it when that happens. You're on the side of the road, and it's more expensive to fix than it is to scrap it.
Right.
That just happens. So the center dial changing gears on the kind of center console there. Is that how it is in other Ford models, or was that new? Does that get in the way at all? It was fine for me, but I was alone, and took a little getting used to where it was. After the few hours I had driven with it, I was fairly used to it. Is that in a decent spot for you, or how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, the Expedition has it in the same spot. The F-150 is probably in the same spot. Now, would I like it up on the dash or somewhere by the start button? Absolutely. I would much rather have it up there, because then I can have a little better spot on putting my coffee or my drink right in that kind of a little table area. I am able to put my coffee cup next to the dial as a shifter, or my drink or whatever, because I think the center console cup is just a tad bit too far for my reach. I'm not that big of a guy. I'm only 5'8", so it's not perfect. So I have it setting right next to the dial a little bit at times. But then unfortunately, then what happens is you end up hitting the hazard lights once in a while. The hazard light will kick on because there's a hazard light button there.
Okay.
But overall, I've gotten accustomed to it. It's what Ford kind of does for their shifter mechanism. Okay. The Lincoln product, they have it up on the dash. There's their buttons.
Okay.
So hopefully Ford changes that in another generation.
Yeah, well, like we were saying before, it's definitely laid out so that Ford owners can find their way around easily, which is great. And then, the question is, do they start moving stuff around to, okay, you're in an EV, you're comfortable with that part of it.
Right.
Now we'll kind of move some stuff to clean things up a little bit. Yeah, that was just one of those things. Like, I got to ask somebody who's driven this for a while, because to me it's weird, but I'm coming from a different perspective than a lot of people will be.
What did you own before your Tesla?
So we have a Model Y now. We got that in March, and we've got over 20,000 miles on it because we've been driving a lot too.
Yeah.
But ours were road trip miles for the most part.
Sure.
And testing things for YouTube because I'm a nerd. Before that, we had a Model S.
Oh, you did?
It was we got it used in 2018. It was a 2015 model.
Okay.
So we got it in 2018 and then drove that until March when we traded in because we were, thinking, hey, trade-in values are pretty good right now.
Yeah, right.
And the 2015 model wasn't really getting a lot of updates or anything anymore. I mean, it ran fine. We had 115 or 117,000 miles on it, and it was as good as the day we picked it up, or even better.
Wow.
We loved it, but we were like, we're going to get into a little more, a little larger vehicle, more narrow.
Sure.
The S was always a little too wide for me.
Oh, okay.
Just, felt like you're driving a boat around a little bit.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
it's before, well, I don't know if it was before, but that one didn't have the package with the air suspension and some of that stuff either.
So your ride quality going from the S to the Y was probably comparable.
Yeah. So, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, this is really stiff and not as comfortable, but coming from a, all springs Model S, it was fine. Yeah. The Y is just a little better for the family. And I figured we'll get this, hopefully hang on to it for 10 or 12 years.
Right.
Should be able to get all the updates and, just kind of set us up long-term. And before that, I had a Camry and a Sonata before that. Nothing too outlandish.
Sure. I started getting, I have a problem, I'll be honest with you. I like buying cars. In the past couple of years, I've had an Expedition. I have a Silverado High Country. I've had 2 Subarus. This is all within the past couple of years, maybe 3 years, right? Because I just wasn't finding that right car, because I would drive a lot and I just wasn't finding the right car until I found the Mach-E. But so in the dealer process, oh my God, it's grueling. It's just hey, you either got it or you don't. You have it, okay. And there's been times where I just say, you know what, you work on the paperwork, you call me up when I'm ready to sign, and then I'll leave and I'll go do something else. I do not have all day to sit in the dealer, because 99% of the time you literally are sitting in the dealer for hours on end waiting for everything. I don't know why it takes so long when I can be at the comfort of my own home and just click enter and I get a car.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of upheaval in the next, over this decade.
Right.
Of how that stuff runs, just because of people's expectations of how you buy things.
Right. Especially when they get a taste, like even with Ford, it's getting easier to buy stuff. Like when you order it online, you can simply order it online, make your reservation. They send that to the dealer. And a lot of times they'll just call you up. They say, okay, we got this, this, and this. Yep, that's it. All right, we'll call you when it's ready.
Yeah.
Things are changing in that aspect of it. And I wouldn't want to be a car dealer. And I think at the end of the day, they need to figure out how to streamline things, because they want it now. And people don't want to wait. And I don't know how they facilitate that, but yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting, but
yeah, well, I'm really encouraged that you had a good, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you had 2 pretty good experiences. Just one was giving you a better trade-in deal than the other.
Well, now let me back up on that. They're 2 different dealers. Okay. I've bought my wife bought all of her vehicles from Maury's. She'd like to buy them from Maury's Buy Happy program. Okay. And then I bought a lot of mine from, it seemed to be the past 3 vehicles were from Metropolitan Ford and Freeway Ford.
Okay.
And the Suburban Chevrolet. They are all owned by the same owner. They have a different deal versus Maury's. Maury's truly wants you to seem to be, they want you to buy happy. And the service seems very slick, very quick, easy, not a whole lot of hassle. They don't try to nickel and dime you and upsell you all these other products. You go into the other company, I don't know the name, the owner of the company, but it is downright, they're going to rake you over the coals. They're going to try to find every angle to nickel and dime you. For example, my Expedition, when I bought the Expedition from them, it had some scuffs on the wheels. Okay. It just so happened the same guy that was appraising my Expedition when I bought it or looking at it, he's like, yeah, we'll get those rims cleaned up for you. No problem. I said, oh, great. Well, no problem. When I went to go trade it in, he happened to be the same appraiser for that truck. And the wheels weren't done yet. I never had gotten it in. I never got it done because it was just too inconvenient of a time for me to bring it in. And I said, Bob, you better not dock me for those rims. He's like, actually, I was going to dock you. And he remembered because I said, I've had to bring it up. Otherwise, he was going to rake me over another $1,000 for having the scuffed rims. I'm like, hey, you guys were supposed to fix that. And you know it. You appraised it. But Maury's, I had one car I brought into them and it was all dinged up from door dings because the Expedition has a big sharp corner on the side of one of their doors. So every time we would go into the Subaru Outback at an Outback, the kids would open the door and it hit the car. So it was dinged up all in the same spot, all along the line. Just ding, 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 ding. Maury's, they didn't care. They just said, yeah, we'll take it. No worries.
Well, yeah.
But overall, though, it was all right.
Unfortunately, this happens with Tesla too, is you hear the horror stories. You hear this dealer's charging me twice as much or, $30,000 over sticker price.
Right.
And, that isn't happening everywhere, but that's what you hear about,
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that you were able to get a good.
And it's like anything. It boils down to everything. Get a second opinion, shop it, it really boils down to that. And just like any consumer should do, shop it, check it around. Just like I encourage as a real estate agent, I say, go shop me. I'm okay with that. I'll provide a great service, but if you think that's fine, that's okay. So because I encourage people to shop because anyway, so
it's a big purchase and you got to be comfortable with it.
Right. Exactly.
We kind of talked about this a little bit, but you've kind of been a Ford family. You've kind of been in the Ford ecosystem for a while.
Yeah. So I had my, I've Subaru, Ford, and Chevy. I'm not married to one particular brand, but yes, to a certain extent, I've been in the ecosystem probably for a couple of years, I suppose. I wouldn't say I'm married. Well, I guess now I think about it, I bought the C-Max in 2014. So I was only 1 year old when I bought that with 7,000 miles on it. So yeah, I guess I have been in it for a little bit yet.
Now having had the experience with the Mach-E, do you guys see doing more EVs in the future? Obviously, it seems like you don't think this was a mistake. So do you kind of see like starting to replace, over the next, maybe it takes a decade or, whatever, over the next several years as you're looking at vehicles?
Yeah.
Are you looking more for EVs or are you thinking you'll have a gas car in the stable or a hybrid in the stable for a while? Or what's your thoughts on that?
So I do have the F-150 reserved. The
Lightning.
I did reserve it. to put it to that perspective is, I'm moving full steam ahead on electric. I'm getting rid of the pickup truck that I have. I have a Silverado half-ton high country, and it's like, you know what? We're getting out of it because I truly think, fast forward even 5 years from now, once these vehicles really start taking off, the value on that truck is just going to take a dump. I mean, it won't be worth anything.
Yeah.
I say, why not get out of it while it's ahead? Everybody wants them right now. People still want them, and there's a good demand for them right now. So I feel like I got to take advantage of the market in the gas engine market. And it would literally get to a point where you won't be able to afford to drive a gas car the way I look at it. Yeah. And the vehicles will be, unfortunately, and they'll be worthless. So
I feel the same way. I think as more and more, the more EVs that get on the road, like you said, you're letting your neighbors drive it. I'm letting my neighbors drive it.
Yeah.
Family members. You said you already had a family member who had an EV.
Yep.
And more and more people are getting the bug, getting interested.
Right.
I was texting with another guy yesterday and he was like, I think within the next 5 years, we'll switch to an EV. And I'm thinking it's going to be before then.
Yeah.
But I think, the manufacturers can't make them fast enough. That's the limiting factor on how fast EV adoption seems to be going. Tesla's got a backlog into next year. The Mach-E has got a backlog into next year. I've got a friend who's got one on order. He's got a May delivery.
Oh, okay.
Scheduled. Yeah. The Lightning, when those things hit job sites and things like that, when the transit vans hit work sites, they won't be able to make them fast enough. So,
right.
And I think there will probably be a spike in gas vehicle prices as the holdouts are trying to get one more, or I'm not sure, you got the people who are right now holding onto their Blackberries going, I'm never going to get a smartphone. So I think there might be a market around 2025, maybe still, but but after that, it's going to crater.
Yes.
Because
I think that's almost exactly, I think by 2025, I think the ICE engines are probably going to be nearing their peak. Because, for instance, a good friend of mine just bought an ICE engine, and she test drove my car and she loved it. She said to her husband, buy this car. But the husband never wasn't quite ready to make that switch yet, right? So he bought he bought a nice engine, but he spent $50,000 on that big sedan, on that sedan. And sure enough, I talked to him, fast forward 3 months later. I said, Jennifer, how do you like that? Man, we're putting a lot of gas in that car because it's more of a performance car and it sucks down the gas and it has to have the premium fuel.
Oh, yeah.
And they're kicking themselves for not just biting the bullet and waiting out to buy the Mach-E, because he wants performance, but he was just a little bit too nervous, not quite ready. But his next car guarantee will be EV. He had a taste of it, not quite ready, but in 2025, maybe 2026, that time frame of having a car will kind of be up, and they'll just go, why we're going all in. And then it will be a tidal wave.
Yeah.
And it won't be stoppable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've got so many friends or family members in that same boat that maybe just bought something, or, they're just not ready to take the leap yet.
Right.
But when that car, when they're ready to turn that car over, they're either kicking themselves now, or in a year or two, they're going to be going, oh man, I got to get out of this thing and into an EV.
Right.
You had mentioned too, for me, it was like, I want to do this. I think it's the right thing to do. I test drove a friend's car. This is amazing. I want to get one of these. We found a way to make it work. And then one of the first things I did was take a road trip in it, because I'm like, can this thing really work for a real person? I thought so, enough to buy it.
Right.
But until you test it how you want to use it, there's always a little hesitation.
Right. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I always believe we're going to go on a long, whenever we go somewhere, we're going to take the EV, right? A long road trip. Right? But my wife says, we're flying. I don't care. We're not going to sit in a car for that kind of trip. We're flying.
Yep.
Once I finally came to the realization that I can't change my wife's mind, that we're going to fly if we go more than 2 states away, or more than 1 state away. The furthest I've ever driven was Chicago. I would take the EV to Chicago, no problem.
Yeah.
But that was the furthest my wife was willing to go travel in a car, was Chicago. After that, we're flying. So
yeah. Well, that's really what a lot of people do. And I love to road trip, but I do, we went out to Montana and the mountains, Wyoming, Colorado, all that in June when you were getting your car. We were out in the mountains.
Okay.
And but you do kind of, like, we were doing things along the way, but you do kind of kill a day at least getting out there and getting back.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I was shooting videos and all that stuff, and we had, meeting people along the way. But, my wife flew out to Montana and just met us there.
Oh,
she's like, I got to work. I'm not like,
yeah,
I can't take that many days off. You're nuts.
Yeah.
She flew out to Montana, spent a few days with us, and then flew back.
Right.
And we're actually planning a trip in February to go down to Florida.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to do the same thing, where my daughter and I are going to drive, road trip, video the whole thing. And then she's like, yeah, I'll see you down there. Like, not that she would be opposed to the trip necessarily, but it's, another 2, 3, maybe 4 days, where she'd have to take off work, and with her, the way her schedule works, that's just not feasible to do. So she's like, you guys have fun, pick me up at the airport and wherever. I can't remember where she's flying into, but it's like, and then we'll have a car down there too. So, it's going to work out well, but, and a lot of people will do that.
Right. I would say 95% of the population are doing just like what we're doing. Right. But the other 5% want that long road trip capability, but for the most part, 95% of people, they don't need it. They don't need to have 500 miles and, I don't know. I kind of think it might be, if anything, I almost think this whole charging infrastructure system is more of with what's trying to be passed. I'd almost rather see them finding ways to invest into people's own homes infrastructure in that aspect of it, helping people get more,
put chargers in their homes or apartments and things.
Put chargers in their home, improve that infrastructure, and figure out a way to say, we're going to tap into every single light pole if we need to, and drop down a cord from a light pole and just plug in right there. Right? Why make this all complicated when you have all the electricity running down the freeway systems from light poles to whatever? I'd almost would prefer to see it sunken into people's, or helping be becoming more energy independent by putting into solar panels. Take all that money that they're putting in there and say, look, we're going to figure out a way to get a solar panel on every roof across America. Yeah. We're going to incentivize the heck out of it. And then pumping that. And then they can really, then people go, well, my electricity is cheap. Gas prices astonishingly high.
Yeah. And the grid's way more secure.
Right. Right. And then there's talk, and you probably heard about this, once everybody switches to EVs and people start switching to more EVs, and when cars are plugged in to the grid or plugged into the outlets, that's a bank of energy that if the grid needs to suck off of that, it has that option to do. I don't know if you've been reading about that or not, but I thought that was fascinating.
I think the Lightning will be able to do it. I think the new Hyundai EV6, I think can do that. Yeah. The Teslas can't yet, but I think with a chip change to their charging structure, they could. Right. But yeah, I think that's going to be where things are going, especially after the Lightning comes out. Right. And people see, especially in emergency situations, how useful that could be. Right. Yeah, that could be big in the future.
I do think, and then it will help with the government were to say implement that as a standard feature and require that to be a standard feature. So when everybody starts switching over to EVs and they have such tremendous load on the grid system, that they can buoy that with some other vehicle, all the other cars out there, take the load off and be able to suck the juice out of the battery packs if they need to back into the grid. And I don't know, somebody's smarter than me to do that, but.
Well, yeah, and there's a big talk of that with school buses too, because they're huge vehicles. They need big batteries, but then they're only used twice a day.
Right.
And the rest of the day, they're just sitting there. They could be hooked into the grid and, you know, add during the overproduction times, pull from them during the low production times, and level things out. Yeah, there's actually in Lakeville, they've got a electric school bus.
Oh, really?
That I had to look at an EV event a couple months ago, but I'd like to get down there and interview them about, I don't know if they have any plans for that yet. I think it's just kind of a pilot program for how does this work for the school.
Sure.
But I'd love to get down and talk to them too about, how it's going so far, especially as we get colder days. And like you were saying about the range and things, when we got our Model S, I was like, everybody needs 250 miles of range. That's going to be like the floor. Everybody needs at least that. And then I started driving it, and I was like, most people could get away with 150 miles of like real world range.
Right.
But you don't know that until you make the change. And even, the superchargers are all 100 to 150 miles apart, for road trips and things like that. And, there's more being built out all the time. But the perception before you own one is I need way more range than I really do.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I think the Leaf is, after a while when people drive the Leaf, I mean, heck, I think that only has 100 miles of range.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a good friend of mine that has one, and they have never once complained about range anxiety on it. If they go really long distance, yes, they're taking their gas car. Yep. But for their really regular commute, going back and forth to work, the range that they have, plenty of range for them.
Well, yeah, I was just talking to someone online the other day, and they're like, we're going to get this EV. Now it's delayed. We're going to have to get something else. And so, well, you could get, they were talking about a hybrid. And I said, we've had good luck with our Prius. But maybe you could get like an older Leaf that would be cheap, get you through for a couple of years. And if you need to do that occasional road trip, rent something.
Yeah.
You're still going to come out way ahead if you can do 90% of your driving, on a short range EV, and then just occasionally rent. Now, maybe in a one car household, you wouldn't be comfortable with that, but it all kind of depends. But
I'm a little nervous when I get the F-150 Lightning. I don't know when it's going to, I haven't even been able to go build it out yet. I think it's going to be able to be built out in January, where I can actually spec it out. I have a pontoon that I pull from Shakopee to the St. Croix River. Okay. And I have a slip out there. I'm a little bit nervous, but I only pull it out one time. From there to there, I drop it in, and then I pull it out of the river and bring it back to storage. That's all the extent of pulling I do right now. I'm a little nervous that I should have enough range to with the Lightning, but I bet it's like anything else. Like I was nervous with the Mach E that I wouldn't have, and I'm realizing what was I worried for?
Yeah.
And then I'll probably, once I get the Lightning, I'll go, what was I worried for?
Yeah.
There's no problem.
Yeah, most likely, or, having had the Mach E, you'll know you can drive a little slower, there's places, there's places to charge that might not be fast, but, if you stop and get a meal, you can pick up a few miles and get back on your way. But
I have found driving down the freeway the other day when it was really cold, gas car, and just enjoying the, driving, no problem. I drive by a bolt owner. They're all bundled up and close. And I realized, well, yeah, I suppose if you're going to go making a long trip, you're not going to use the heat,
Yeah.
But
I think, I can't remember if the Bolt has a resistive heater or a heat pump. Does the Mach-E have a heat pump?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So have you found with your heat pump, because Y has a heat pump, did you get the 21 model or the 20 model? Okay,
21.
so you had the black handles. Have you noticed a big difference with the heat pump, that you have a heat pump versus your S when you had the S?
I haven't really yet, but I haven't driven much in the cold. We got ours in late March, and then it wasn't really that cold, for a while. And so far on the really cold days, I haven't driven too much.
Okay.
I think it's going to be better, but I haven't really had a chance to really test it. The S was fine for me. Sometimes if I got in that, dicey situation on range, I'd, crank the seat heaters up and turn the air off. And, but I don't really see that being a big problem in the Y.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it'll be fine.
It's a far more efficient car than the 2015 S. So
is it? Okay.
Yeah.
During the summer months on that Mach E, I was exceeding 300 miles in range. Okay. And it was a wonderful.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would try to get it to zero, and it was very hard for me. I still have yet to get it to zero. I've got it to 11 miles, down to 11 miles of range, but I've yet to get it to zero.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Now that it's getting colder out and it's learning my settings as it gets a little chillier, I keep it at 72 degrees. I am seeing some range loss. I think right now it said I had, when I woke up this morning, was 223 miles of range. Okay. But in the summer, I think I was up to 318. I think that was the highest I saw for 318 miles of range. So I think it will bounce back, but still, I don't.
Well, and some of that with the Tesla too is somebody's probably going to make a comment here because I might not be saying this technically right here, but that's the risk of YouTube. You said something not quite accurate. But what I remember with the Model S was that once the battery heats up from driving, we'd start out and it would be like, hey, man, you've only got this much and we're cold. But then as you start driving, not that you'll necessarily get miles back, but your first 10 or 20 miles will go by really fast. And then slowly you'll get more and more as that pack warms up. You'll get more and more out of each mile. Or percentage, depending on how you view it. But that was my experience, where it was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And then you make it there with almost what you started with because the battery warmed up, or, it'll be interesting to see how the Mach-E performs over the winter, and the Model Y too.
Right. Do you preheat your cabin when in the mornings, or
have
that set up?
Yeah. If I'm going, not during the day, like if it gets cold during the day, I just, generally, unless I've got my daughter with me or something, I won't preheat it. But when it's plugged in and I'm going in the morning, and then I'll, preheat the cabin too. And that helps. Just,
I do the same thing. I have it set at 8:50 a.m. when I'm walking out that door. It is a beautiful temperature inside of it.
And you can do it with the garage closed, which is the best feature that no one talks about, is you don't have to go open the garage door, back the car out, start it, and it's warm, but you got to walk through a blizzard to get out to it. Here it's just no emissions. Walk out to your into your garage, getting the kids in when they're still kind of warm. That was the biggest revelation for me in my first winter. Yeah,
that is amazing. You don't have to, they're not full of snow when they get in the car. You just open the door, they just hop in like they just came from, they get no, it's almost the only cold they actually touch nowadays is from when they get to the school, from the outside of the school door to get into the school.
Yep.
It's nice. It's super nice. My wife drives the pickup truck. She drives a lot less than I do. She drives maybe 9 miles one way and 9 miles back, right? Hurrying back. She goes out there first thing in the morning, starts the truck, backs it out.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on my porcelain throne. Good. All good.
Ooh, that's going to be toasty.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an amazing, it's amazing. I'm not too worried yet with the Mach-E. Since the last couple of weeks, since a couple of weeks, we had some cold snaps.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be just fine. I did do a few additions to the Mach-E. I added a few things off market, and that didn't come standard. I added a headliner and the glass roof up there.
Okay.
And it's like an insulation thing on top of it too. Mm-hmm. I don't like the sun coming in and kind of going through my eyeglasses, my sunglasses.
Sure.
So I actually added a liner, a sunshade up there. And then I discovered inside there, they have like almost like a little insulator piece that I can put in there. So now when I touch the ceiling, I don't feel any cold.
Nice.
So something to think about if on your Y, I don't know if you have that full glass piece, but
yeah, it's full glass, but yeah, I think there is an aftermarket thing you can get for it.
Right. It's nice. I feel that the temperature stays more consistent, and I feel as if I'm using less heat when I am. I could be wrong, but it feels that way anyway.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So anyway,
but the last thing I want to ask you is, if someone's considering a Mach-E, is there any advice you have for them, or like the greatest feature of this car is this, or any parting like words of wisdom that you can share with people who might be looking to get their Mustang Mach-E?
I would say take the risk and do it. Don't delay. Just don't delay. I was hesitant at first. I came from a big gas guzzler. I mean, I came from an Expedition, or actually technically I traded that in for a pickup truck that I was driving around. I'm a pickup driver. It was a big full-size truck. Just do it. I mean, I can't really explain anything else. I mean, there's no better feeling when you're on the freeway and when you're trying to get up to speed and you're worried that the guy that you're trying to merge with, you can't get around that guy, that you just floor it and bam, you pass him. And you can safely get around that person. Whereas let's say you're in that, everybody's in that instant when you're trying to merge on the freeway and there's that semi, he can't move over. You're stuck between a rock place. You're about to get in the shoulder and now your life is flashing in front of your eyes. There's no better feeling when you can just instantly floor that car and you can get around and pass the whole situation.
Yeah.
There is just that alone for how much I drive and how many situations you can get out of and get around is, you'll just realize how amazing it is. It's just, I can't even explain, the words can't even explain how satisfying it is that you don't have to have that anxiety on getting on the freeway system and worrying about that semi that can't move over, or that jerk that won't let you in. And you can just simply say, bye-bye, and floor it. And you're out of the deal and you're away from it. It's just, sure, there's a lot of fun gimmicks with the Mustang. You got the frunk, which is a nice, and this, but practicality, be able to have that instant torque where you don't have to worry about anybody running you off the road.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's just, I don't know. I hope that helps.
Yeah. I really enjoyed my drive with it. Like I'm so excited that there are other great options. I love my Model Y. You love your Mustang Mach-E.
Right.
I've got a friend who loves his ID4. And to think that 2 years ago, none of these existed.
Yeah. Right.
And now there's more and more great options that, what might be right for this person might not be right for that person, or, but to have good quality options that, like owners like you and I love our vehicles, and to be able to share that is fantastic, because the more great options there are, the more the right vehicle for the next new EV owner,
right,
there is. So
right.
Yeah, it's just super exciting for me. I did really enjoy my drive. I'm really looking forward to like I said, I got a friend who's got one ordered. We were kind of geeking out in the week before he ordered it. Like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? The color and the, what battery size and, performance, non-performance, all that stuff for the, is it performance or is the GT, performance and
GT performance on whether you get that or not get that.
Yeah. But there are options, and that's so fantastic.
Right. There is when I was concerned as well on which one model or what to select, not to select, and yada yada yada. The one guy on a review I saw, just get the one with the most amount of range. So I figured at the time that had the most amount of range. So I just say, you know what, that will give me the most range. And then hopefully when I get when the battery technology starts changing and hopefully improve, which hopefully comes soon, that's when I'll say, okay, well, I have the biggest range. That's, hopefully it holds its value the most,
Yeah. And I thought this was Ford. I might have this wrong. But I thought maybe in the next couple months, Ford was going to unlock like another 10 miles or something.
Yeah.
And that might be the update you missed. I can't remember if it was just happened or was going to happen like early next year. But yeah, that's another great thing with Ford is as they get used to managing a fleet of EVs and seeing how the data is coming back on their batteries, on their software, all that stuff. It's so easy to tweak. It's not like you don't have to go into the dealer and have a new part installed. It's just, hey, we're making this electronic part work smarter.
Right.
And your car gets better.
Right.
And that's a fantastic aspect of it.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely correct. That is what Ford came out with the other day, because apparently it's an 88 kilowatt battery, if I'm correct. And
I think that's right.
Using, I don't know how much, but they're not using the full potential of the battery. They're reserving it for if it starts to degrade, so you don't have the full capacity of it. So who knows how much potential's in it when they start unlocking it, and we'll see.
Yeah, and Tesla's done some range increases just through drivetrain optimization, where you have a few million miles on these vehicles, and you go, hey, if we do this, it's going to improve. You'll get a couple extra miles. So, it's so cool. This whole industry is getting mature, but it's also in its infancy of what they can pull out of this stuff.
Right. I will say this. I think, have you watched Sandy Monroe? Okay. Did you watch him tear apart the Mustang Mach-E yet?
I didn't watch all of them. I saw a handful of the videos, but I can't say I saw every single one.
Okay. So I don't think the dealers have really any concern. They shouldn't have any concerns about down the road of having to repair these EVs. I think the mechanics need to start shifting their train of thought to EVs and start planning for, because if you look at Sandy's review, there's a lot of coolant hoses all over the place in that thing. I know. So after reviewing that and then watching the his breakdown, obviously Tesla's way light years ahead.
Well, they've got a decade more experience doing it. But what's exciting to me, I've had a couple people comment on my Mustang video about Ford's just, old news and it's garbage. Just don't even pay attention. They've got all these hoses in the front.
Yeah.
But what's encouraging about Ford especially, and VW is kind of doing this, at least in their, top management, but Ford really seems to be learning fast and taking that feedback from the Sandys of the world and going, okay, we need to make this better and we need to start doing it faster. They were really surprised by the interest in the Mach-E, and the interest and excitement around the Lightning blew their minds. They had no idea there was going to be so much interest. And even in the last couple of days, they've said they're going to double their production targets
Yes.
of, I think, both the Mustang Mach-E and Lightning. And they're opening this Blue Oval City, new plants and battery plants. Everybody says they're the EV leader, or they're going to be the EV leader. But it really seems like Ford management is seeing the opportunity and, the gold mine to really make a big splash here.
Right.
And that's so encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Completely agree. It's amazing and how I agree. When somebody puts out a video and they're kind of not happy about something and it blows up on the internet or on YouTube, and they're reaching out to the consumer and saying, what can we do? What do we got to do? Which is normally you typically don't see something. So I do think these launch vehicles, the Mustang and the Lightning, is very critical. So they want to see it succeed because it is, I think it is the future. Let's just, it is the future. Ford is really making sure they deliver a great product.
Yeah. And like you said before, they're putting their tentpole brands into EVs and saying, hey, we're going to do this, and kind of put their reputation on it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And they're going all in. And I think it's a wonderful thing. It's almost, to a certain extent, this whole chip shortage situation, because from what I understand, Ford has been diverting the chips to their EV product to make sure that is a smooth launch as much as they can, like the Bronco.
Oh, really?
The Bronco has been a slow rollout, the big one. And from what I was understanding, they're kind of diverting, not from what I was reading. You just got to take stuff with a grain of salt, but they were diverting a lot of those resources back to the Mach-E and the EV product because they want to ensure it is a good rollout and they're not having a bunch of people upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be working.
Yeah, it's great. And, a lot of Tesla people, like I said, I get, some of the, only Tesla. It's like even Elon said, we can't make all the cars in the world. We need all these other people. Right. We want to transition the world to electric, transportation.
And I think I read something where Elon actually said, we want to share our technology.
Mm-hmm.
From what I was reading on their cars, we want to share it because it needs to happen. We need to transform into EV. And I could be wrong, but I thought I read something about that he has kind of an open book.
Yeah, they've got an open patents policy. Yeah. I don't know if it's always the latest and greatest patents, but it's and I think if people are using them in good faith, they're fine with letting people do that because of making the transition. Opening up the supercharger network is another way of there has to be good charging for everybody. So
I heard he is going to be opening that up in the States.
It will happen. It's just, like I said, because there's an adapter involved, I would be surprised if it'll be before mid next year or late next year, but it's going to happen. And I think it'll just be, good for everybody. It's going to be good competition for the other charging networks.
Right.
And then it's also going to be good to make more people comfortable with a broader, charging experience.
So one thing I want to mention, who I'm really scared for is the gas stations. Why aren't they putting in options for electric charging? I just don't get it. Why isn't Super America, Quick Trip, BP, all these stations out there saying, wait a minute, why aren't we putting in an electric charging station right in our facility here for people? I don't get it.
They should. Some are, I don't know if you're familiar with Buc-ee's. It's a Southern travel stop and gas station conglomerate across the Southeast. Okay. They just announced that 26 stores are going to get banks of superchargers. And I don't know if they'll do other EV charging too, but so some of them are, but in a few blocks away from my house, they just opened this massive new Quick Trip. And there isn't even a, level 1 plug. They didn't even put a 120 outlet in the parking lot. Cause some of them do have that. and it's got a little tag that says EV charging,
Okay.
but it's just a 120 socket.
Oh.
And somebody was asking some manager or something about it. It's like, really, that's for our employees if they want to plug in. They have the option. It's not really for travelers.
Okay.
But yeah, you invest all this, you spend the money, put tanks in the ground, do all this stuff. All you'd have to do is run a couple wires out to part of your parking lot.
Yeah.
And you've got people who will be there buying stuff at your store for a half hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't understand it. If anything, you want to attract customers like that because they got nothing but time to sit around. And what are they going to do? They're going to go eat.
Yep. Yeah. They're going to buy snacks, use the restroom, but, buy snacks, food, gear if they need it. For us, when we're on road trips, especially in smaller towns or, more out of the way places, we'll always go in and buy something, even if it's just a soda or something, just as a, hey, support the business that's hosting the chargers. So it's, and the gas stations don't make a lot of money on gas. They make their money on that other stuff. So
right. I just don't understand it. It just baffles me. I scratch my head and think, why isn't these big, especially Quick Trip? I mean, they're popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
And they've got big lots too. They seem when they buy a piece of property, they buy a big swath. And I just think, why are you not dropping in 2 to 3 charging stations, level 3? I just don't get it. I do not understand it, why they are so against it when it's going to be the thing.
Yeah, I guess I don't know I wonder if the permitting for those takes so long, that maybe now they would think it's a good idea, but they had to get these permits started 3 years ago. That could be it. But you would think it's like, well, just amend the permit. Adding more electrical isn't a big deal. I mean, in the grand scheme of building a gas station and the whole facility, a couple extra power runs aren't that big of a deal.
Right. And the amount of power they're sucking out of there just alone to power the station, there's plenty of juice coming in.
Yeah.
All they got to do is, it's a head scratcher. I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But
well, hopefully that'll be the next transition. But
right.
Was there anything else you wanted to share about the Mach-E or anything your experience?
I'm super excited for winter because I do want to see how it performs. People think it's a sports car, but it is an all-wheel drive car. I'm super excited for that, just to see how it handles. And I think it's going to handle even better than a gas car because I don't have to use the brakes.
Yeah, regen can get a little dicey on icy roads, so beware of that.
Okay.
Just because it's doing it and you're not necessarily controlling. So if you start to slide, it can, but usually like sometimes you're on ice and you wouldn't hit the brake, but regen will kick on. So if there's a lower regen setting, you might want to use that, or just kind of keep your foot always on the accelerator a little bit.
Okay, good tip.
Just if it's not just to the point where no regen is coming on, if you're on a really icy patch, just be aware of that. But with our Model S, the center of gravity is so low, all-wheel drive. That thing was a tank in the snow. Yeah. It was so good.
Yes.
We never had any issues. It was the best. And I've had cars, trucks, SUVs, and the Model S was by far my best vehicle in the winter so far.
Excellent.
And I'm hoping the Y is even better. And for your sake, I hope the Mach-E is as well.
Yeah. I think the physics to me would think it should be wonderful in the snow, just based on it's heavy. The tires that they put on them are really narrow. At least I think they look pretty narrow. I have replaced the tires though, not by choice. It was more or less I had a nail that went into the side of it. So, and Discount Tire where I got them from would only, they didn't have any other tire size. So I was able to go up a couple sizes. So it was kind of nice.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on and being willing to do this. Maybe we'll catch up in the spring and see how your winter went.
Absolutely. Great chatting with you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye. Thanks again to Joe for joining me and telling me all about his Mach-E experience. And I hope you enjoyed this and got a little insight, especially if you're thinking of the Mach-E as your next vehicle. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.